I'm joined by, from my extreme left, James Kwabena Bomfe. He's Director of Elections of the Convention People's Party. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you,
Not your first time on the show?
Yes.
Great to have you.
Thank you for having me
around. Yes, thank you very much. Also, we have Peter McMenu. He's former national chairman of the NPP. He's an industrialist. He's an international elections observer and the NPP's rep at the Electoral Commission. I should have also said that James Bomfe is a CPP's rep at the Electoral Commission in regard as far as the election reforms is concerned. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Good to have you. I've also followed you, and you're always globe-trotting. You're going for one election observation program here or election program there, all over Africa.
Election is
right.
Of great importance to Africa.
Great. Also, Bernard Ambateyala Mona is General Secretary of the PNC and Party Elections Rep. He was supposed to be the party's elections rep at the EC. He's not, and he has a huge protest as far as that issue is concerned. You would have represented them because I would think that naturally you have been in court fighting over election matters, and so your party would have deemed it that you would have been the most qualified to represent them at the EC.
Not really, but would have taken somebody that could equally be competent to
Right.
answer.
You're welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
Good. So what are we doing now? We are discussing electoral reforms, and as you may know by now, thankfully today I'm not boycotted, the Electoral Commission has inaugurated an electoral reform committee, and it did this inauguration on the 23rd of January this year, sometime last week, was it Thursday or Friday, and they have been charged to look at a number of proposed reforms, and out of that decide which of these proposals should be adopted by the state, by Ghana, for reforms going into the 2016 elections. You are very familiar with what the Supreme Court had to say about very glaring irregularities that manifested in the 2012 elections, and also proposed some reforms. So this is what is leading us to this point. So let's start, and I'd like to start with you, Bernard. First, on the point that you are obviously unhappy. Maybe unhappy is an understatement, that your party, the PPP, and some other minority parties are not represented on this 10-member committee of the Electoral Commission.
First, let me say that the party certainly cannot be happy for a number of reasons. And I also respond to Owusu Pari, who tries to claim that I signed a letter to the effect that we endorse what they have done, which is absolutely false.
And when you say Owusu Pari, you're referring to Christian Owusu Pari
of the Electoral Commission.
Okay. Now, before you go on, we have also been joined by Kofi Adams. He is the national organizer of the National Democratic Congress, NDC, and he has had some things to do with their elections processes. When I read the documents, this voluminous document that's been compiled by the Electoral Commission, it is Kofi Adams who signed off on the proposals by the NDC for reforms. Good morning and welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning.
Great. Okay, so you are on the floor.
As you're very much aware, somewhere in 1992, when we returned to multi-party democracy in this country, the PNC, the NDC, the MPP, the NIP, that is the National Independence Party, the Heritage Party, the NCP, and many other political parties participated in election 1992. 1996, there were only 3 political parties that participated in elections in this country. It was John Kufuor's MPP, John Rawlings's NDC, and Edward Mahama's PNC. These were the only 3 political parties that were represented on the ballot in 1996. In the year 2000, after a court decision, the name CPP came to bear, and the CPP contested election for the first time with Professor Hagan as their flag bearer. That's the year 2000. All these years, the PNC has participated in all elections from 1992 to 2012, and will contest again in 2016. So the PNC certainly have practical knowledge of the do's and the don'ts of elections, what made elections to work and what made elections not to work. Beyond that, since 1996, the PNC has been represented in Parliament, contributing to shaping the political will of the people as required by the Constitution of Ghana. Somewhere in September last year, 2014, the Electoral Commission wrote to the political parties, indicating that they were setting up a committee on electoral reforms, and that the committee was to see NDC representation, MPP representation, and other political parties should bring 2 representation. What they meant by other political parties, something you know in law, we don't have other political parties. We have a political party called the PNC. And so when you say other political parties, what do you mean? We responded to them and told them that that is not the way to go. We have participated in every election. We are one of the parties that have shown consistency and commitment to our multi-party democratic processes. So it was unthinkable for us to be excluded, particularly on a committee of this nature. At a meeting, the chairman of the Electoral Commission said that if the other parties...
Were you excluded, or you felt offended that you were being referred to as other
We were excluded.
parties?
We were excluded because, one, we were asked by other political parties, and I had communication with, quote, some political parties. I had communication with my counterpart in the CPP, my counterpart in the PPP. And then we all had the same position that it was not a fair process to exclude our participation or limit our participation to 2. We insisted on that. We met with the chairman of the Electoral Commission, and at a meeting he said that the NDC has brought their rep, the MPP has brought their rep, and that if we are not bringing our reps, they will go ahead anyway to inaugurate their committee and do their work. So I didn't participate in any meeting.
So let me understand this. How many other political parties are we talking about that were called upon to bring 2?
I don't know, but by the records of the Electoral Commission, I'm told that we have 23.
Okay.
And therefore, if you take NDC and MPP out, you will have 21.
Okay.
That's by the record of the Electoral Commission. Now, they're forming a committee to look at electoral reforms. And the NDC, MPP, 2 political parties represented, you have 6 other members that are non-political. So, ab initio, the political parties are in the minority. Ab initio, the political parties are in the minority. So, at a meeting when they were launching this book that Kwabena Bonfe is having, Electoral Laws of Ghana, my attention was drawn to the fact that there was a meeting at which there was a tie between Kwabena Bonfe of the CPP and Ward Brew of the DPP. And they were asking my opinion. Then I said, we protested this, but if you were asking me to choose between CPP and DPP, I'll obviously go with Kwabena Bonfe. You restrict me, and I said I'll go with Kwabena Bonfe of the CPP because they've participated in elections longer than any other political party beyond the PNC. They have also been in Parliament, and they continue to contribute their quota to the development. So when it comes to this, I'll use these 2 yardsticks to support the CPP position to go. So that I did. Supporting Kwabena Bonfe, still protesting our exclusion and why we should be limited. Owusu Pare then takes that paper and come out to say that I endorse the decision that the PNC should be excluded. Then I said, this is absolutely outside
what
the
was
red.
the meaning of your support for Comrade Bomfe?
Because we were restricted out of the equation. We were not part of the equation any longer. It is like there is
So
a round
you
of.
had understood that there
There
was
is a
no
round
space
off
for you.
There is a round
and
off.
That is why you
There
supported
is a round
the
off
CPP's
in which the
representation.
PNC is not participating. We either to support the NDC artists in 2000 or support the MPP. And that circumstance, are you going to protest any longer? You don't have any right any longer because they have curtailed your rights.
I see. Just hold on briefly for me. Commissioner, do you find that so now you are on the committee as representing other minority political parties? Is that correct?
Rightly so. Let me say a very good morning to our listeners and cherished viewers. Samson, thank you for the opportunity, you and your production crew. I came along with a letter of invitation from the commission, and it reads simply, Dear Sir, Inauguration of Electoral Reform Committee, having been nominated as one of the 2 persons representing the rest of the minority parties on the Electoral Reforms Committee, the Commission has the pleasure to inform you that the committee will be inaugurated on Friday, 23rd January 2015. Blah, blah, blah. Mr. Kwabena Bomfe Jr., Convention People's Party. So, really, I am serving on that committee, not for the CPP per se, but as a nominee representing the other minority parties.
You are doing that together with Mr. Enin Kofi Addo of the Yes People's Party. Yes People's Party. Who's the leader of the Yes People's Party?
He is.
Okay.
He's a chairman and founder
of the Yes People's Party.
Yeah.
Okay. Go on.
I would not want to belabor the history that.
Right. We tend to deal with it briefly and then go into the substance of the document.
I would have wished that we would not be here. I would have wished that we would not be here because I felt that this matter was settled when Bernard spoke during the inauguration or the launching of these electoral reform book and electoral laws of Ghana, yes, where it was a question of breaking a tie between myself and Mr. Wardbrew, who was not present anyways, at an exercise which I was actually, not fully a part of, because it was a situation where my party had protested, actually, just as Bernard had said. And it brings to question the method and the manner in which the Electoral Commission allows representation of political parties there. I must start by saying, I don't think it is fair for us to continue having so-called about 26 political parties in the electoral books of the Electoral Commission.
Why do you say that?
Because they are not, we don't have 26 functioning political parties in Ghana. You have some of the parties that have even, folded up, still existing. I don't think it is fair. Then 2 is a question of how political party representations are made. I know in the instance of the IEA, for example, they deal with political parties with representation in parliament. And so in a previous instance where we had a committee running up to the 2012 elections, the biometric process, a similar situation occurred where the NDC and the MPP were asked by the Electoral Commission to make representation on each of those 2 committees. When it came to the CPP and PNC, even though we also have representation in Parliament, and in this instance, PPP was not even called at all. I'm talking about the committees that went into
before 2012.
The 2012 elections, the biometric process. The CPP and PNC were given options to choose either of the committees. And we have 2 committees, namely the Technical and Legal Committee and the Technical and Security Committee and the Constitutional and Legal Committee.
Okay.
That is how come I sat on the Technical Committee and Alhaji Ahmed Ramadan of the PNC sat on the Constitutional and Legal Committee. In this instance, as I've said earlier, I think that on the day it was settled that I should be part of the two who would represent the minority parties, I feel that the matter would have settled there. And I'm saying so because the work of this committee is not a finality.
Okay.
The committee is to submit back to the commission, and the commission will discuss it at IPAC in the plenary.
Right. So
where
at
all
the level of
parties,
IPAC, all parties,
yes, all
are
parties
represented.
will have an involvement.
So, Mr. Bakmenu, this obviously, we shouldn't go this tangent, talking about who is represented and who is not represented and all of that. I've heard the PPP, speak vehemently against this particular representation. What do you say about it? Bernard is suggesting that the non-political party members are a bit. They could have reduced that number and giving a lot more room to parties.
I think that, Kabila, if Bernard or what's his name, Kofi Sound, bring any of them, bring you any recommendations, you bring it on board because you are representing them.
Okay.
So I don't see any big deal. Physical representation does not mean that you alone are going to do it.
All right.
You have other people's views which will be sent to you, and certainly he representing smaller or whatever parties should be able to do consultation with them, and they must also feel free and whatever views they have. I think you may even have to call a meeting subsequently so that you get their views and bring it on board to the meeting. It shouldn't create any.
Let me say that maybe Mr. McMahon should opt out and put me there and bring his
well,
suggestions.
I am not there on my own
So
volition.
that, no,
it
you
is
should
the
opt
new
out,
patriotic party.
If it is that, we can just submit memoranda to James to take it. Then NPP can opt
But you
out.
may be also may be speaking oblivious.
We are in a democracy.
Right.
In the Houses of Parliament.
Right.
From the Greek time, we have representation. Now that is the modern form of democracy.
Okay.
So if somebody is representing you, it's not out of order.
Representation does not mean static.
Now,
that
as far as
at
you are
any point in
concerned,
time,
as far
the
as
NDC and NPP must be represented.
Mr. McMahon has been very brief about it. I wish I can get same from you, Kofi, because you are agreeing with him on this issue. I mean, the matter is settled. They should move on. It's okay. But in future, should it be the same way? Or all the parties should be given the opportunity? And if they are all going to be given the opportunity to be represented physically, then, like James said, 26 parties, we are not too sure whether really they are all on the ground. They will all be represented?
You see, good morning to your viewers and listeners. Reforms go through various stages. First was a request from all political parties. Submit to us proposals. Civil society, submit to us proposals. Various political parties did. I don't know whether the other minority parties that are complaining did submit some proposals.
When I look through the documentation, it does appear that the Yes People's Party did submit something. The CPP did not. The PNC did not. PPP did not.
So I'm carrying on from there. So that opportunity is the first broader level. Civil society, bring your issues on board. IEA even went further and created a platform for the political parties that belong to their platform, and even those that don't belong to their platform were invited. We met in Koforidua, agreed to some pointers, about 18 points, which we signed off, and they submitted this also on behalf of Ghana Political Parties program. Now is the stage.
You met twice. Was it Koforidua first or Akosombo first?
Akosombo was first.
Correct.
Then Koforidua was the final. Yeah, was the final meeting. So they are now at the stage of now discussing all these proposals that have come from various quarters, so that they will see what is possible, what is not possible from even that committee point of view and how to implement it.
Okay.
Then they will now submit this to Electoral Commission, and we will have IPAC together with other civil society participation and even our DPs. We will all meet and discuss again and conclude. I believe that if political parties we could come together and agree at the GPP level, where the IEA could present 18 points on our behalf, it should be possible for the minority parties to be represented by that. It just tells you how difficult it is to work as a commission in this country. It's like our home as to what to eat for breakfast, whether it should be porridge or it should be tea or it should be coffee or it should be this or it should be that, and why should go for a dessert. At a point, I believe a decision has to be taken. And like Mr. McMenu rightly said, I think Kobina Bonfair and his other colleagues who are representing the minority parties must have a kind of caucus discussions with the minority parties to hear their position on the proposals that have been put forward for discussions even before they go to meetings, just like McMenu will do with his party before going for the meeting, and Honorable Johnson Asedun Ketia will do with the NDC before going for a meeting. They may also have to share with
Mr. McMenu, from what he's saying, I get the impression that then Bernard's points should be understood in this direction. If the Ghana Political Parties platform of the IEA has all the parties represented, and you had 2 separate workshops and agreed on proposals for reforms, about 20-point communique which you signed at the end, in that case, there's no need again for each individual party to be invited to submit proposals. So you don't even need each party to be represented on this Electoral Commission's platform. As far as this, your document is submitted to them.
Something there is the need, because at Koforidua, at Akosombo first and Koforidua later, there were certain issues raised by various political parties where consensus could not be built. So there was a window of opportunity for you to submit through your own political party, as he rightly said. So though the Ghana political parties agreed on 20 points, there were still certain points which we all could not agree to. And that, for that reason, each political party also felt that there's an opportunity to submit on their own.
For example, no verification, no votes. All of you did not agree.
We all agree.
I think we all agree on that. We all agree.
We agree.
Okay.
We all agree. But I have heard in some quarters that MPP even did not say anything about voters register. But if you read, I'm happy you have the document here. Read the covering letter from Chairman Jake.
Right.
He even wanted that to be treated first priority. Because if I may read, the last, he says, in view of the impending registration of the District Assembly elections, we asked for an early meeting, as the cleaning of the current register is of importance to all Ghanaians to ensure that multiple registrations, as were evidenced in court, are removed and the continued validity of the register is assured. So he wanted even
cleaning doesn't mean
we'll move into this, but just a small question to you, Bernard. It sounds to me as an indictment that you are all invited to submit individual proposals to the EC. You don't submit. CPP, you don't submit. PPP, they don't submit, at least according to the compilation by the EC. And when you are not invited, you are crying foul. Why?
We have always known that the individual memoranda to the Electoral Commission does not constitute the finality, and that at any point in time throughout history we'll get to the Electoral Commission and we'll make the issue. And so there was no need submitting any memoranda and still be called upon to come and debate or put up the issues any longer. So it was like, you know what is going to happen. You'll be called, you'll be asked about your views on what proposals. And before today, we have indicated to the Electoral Commission what proposals we even wanted in election 2012 that they did not factor, that affected us and eventually led us to court. So we, on our part, we know that there are issues that we have to deal with. More importantly, at the IEA function, why? If we did not agree on issues, because individual political parties presented them at a meeting of political parties, why do you think that submitting them quietly through the Electoral Commission will come and agree them at a later date?
Okay.
I just wanted us all to appreciate the task imposed.
Quickly, because I want us to go into the details
on this committee based on some comments that have been made here in terms of meeting people ahead of going. This committee is not to go and receive new reforms or new proposals.
No, that means that you have been shut out. You were thinking that you have the opportunity.
That is the point. That is where we want to finish. Because you give them a document and say, take it and give us administrative.
These proposals for reform, were discussed at the Electoral Commission by all political parties at the behest of the Commission. And there was an issue of, pruning and, if you like, sifting through.
Yeah. Right.
And we said we couldn't do all of that within the plenary. So we should set up an ad hoc committee to go sift it down and bring it back.
And that's what this
to the
committee is going
That's
to
what
do.
this committee is going to do.
So those of
that
you who fail
reference,
to present memoranda, you have lost.
they haven't lost. They haven't lost because
there's still a
beyond the report, the presentation of the report by this committee to the Electoral Commission, the commission will sit and now adopt it as a working document. Before it does that, it will meet with the political parties to evaluate the work done by the committee.
Okay. Shortly, we are going to go into the details of what represents the proposals for amendments, changes into the electoral system and everything else. Obviously, because of the problems that were discovered during the Supreme Court's hearing as far as petition.
Samson, I wanted to
that's the basis. The Ghana political party's program.
We have done reforms. Whether there was a Supreme Court or no Supreme Court, we still have gone ahead with electoral reforms.
So we shouldn't
be like
thank you. So we'll go there. We'll look at the constitutional issues that will need to be raised and changes that has to be made, the statutory, regulatory, administrative, and what's a view that will have to be taken care of. We'll do that very shortly. This show is brought to you by Bank of Africa. Now, Bank of Africa, they are all over the country, and they have tailor-made products that suit both your individual and corporate needs. All you need to do is to call them 0244-338-226, 0244-338-226, and discover a product that suits your lifestyle or business. Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner. And Star Assurance, they also have offices all over this country. In fact, in corners that you don't believe they would have been located there. Get in touch with Star Assurance. They will take care of all your needs as far as insurance is concerned. So you visit Star Assurance today for a truly reliable travel insurance or whatever other insurance policies that you are looking for. And you call them 0302-240-632, 0302-240-632, or you can log on to starassurance.com for details. Star Assurance, that is your solid partner. And think of something special. Think of someone special. Someone you love talking to, someone who makes you smile. Imagine being able to choose this special person's MTN number as your magic number and talk to this person all for free for 6 months. 6 good months. That's right. Free unlimited calls to one special number. It's only possible with MTN Akwaba. So let's welcome you to the biggest family with MTN Akwaba. So go on, buy a new MTN SIM card and choose one other MTN number as your magic number and enjoy free calls to that special number. And guess what? You also get a whopping 100% bonus on all recharges for 6 months, plus 50% bonus on your weekly spends. Join MTN today and say welcome to the new world. MTN everywhere you go. So, shall we start? And I'd like to start with Kofi Adams. I realize that, to be frank with you, reading the documents, the compilation by the EC, the NDC, what you submitted was a simple letter, 2-page letter of how many points of suggestions of proposal. It doesn't sound as if you are much into that process or that you are very serious about it, because comparatively, you look at the NPP, they submitted a covering letter plus a whole memo containing over how many points. I'll let you know them. Why is that so?
Thank you very much, Samson. We are very serious about reforms, but we kind of agree that we have come very far. If I want to liken, you walk on the street, you may have or find two people crying. One may be crying because he's so hungry, have not had anything to eat. Another person may be crying because he has ate so well that the only reason why he or she is crying is that the dessert. Maybe the person wanted chocolate ice cream, but then the parent provided maybe another type of ice cream, and so the child is crying. I'm likening this to the processes that we have gone through as a country in terms of elections and election reforms. And we have known that in the past, starting from 1992, when people have to enter a room and go and vote before casting the ballot in the open in an opaque ballot box,
right,
to now having a transparent ballot boxes, to having photo voter ID in all the regional capitals plus 10 other urban areas, and having screens in the open for people to enter in there, having party agents, having results counted and signed off with copies given to party agents, all these processes, to the point of even having a biometric voter register, we have come very far. We realized through the 2012 general elections that a few things, like many other democracies, we suffered some mishap, not necessarily a major irregularity to have affected the outcome of the elections. Take, for example, America, that have practiced voting and democracy over many, many years. In the year 2000, when we have concluded our elections and have sworn in a president, they were still struggling in Florida because of arrangement of questions and what have you. We saw so clearly that what happened in 2012 and what the commission itself have identified could easily be dealt with. There were some issues that before the 2012 elections, at a meeting, the chairman of the Electoral Commission was asking the political parties what they should do, because they, as a commission, have identified persons with photographs thinking that they were minors. And they put the question across that this is the law. During registration, it allows you to have your agents at the registration point. You have a right to challenge anybody you feel is not qualified. But that person also has a right to have his or her data captured, except that your name will not be in the final list until the challenge is completely concluded through an adjudication.
So can we start
process.
from this point? As far as the register is concerned, the electoral roll is concerned, in your 2-page letter of 10 points proposals,
Yep.
what are you looking for to be done as far as the register is concerned? You speak about the Electoral Commission already is empowered, and you want it to go to court to delete names of unqualified persons on the voters register.
Sure.
It should continue a sustained process of voter registration, subject to periodic, rigorous auditing, to maintain the integrity of the voters' roll.
Sure. That's
all you
realize
want to
that
be done as far as the register is concerned.
As far as the register is concerned, these are the two key things that went down, especially when the Electoral Commission is empowered to go to court and be able to delete names that they should. Because as it stands now, the Electoral Commission by itself cannot do it. But if they are empowered to be able to go to court, then the person they so suspect would also have to come to court to prove that indeed I am qualified to register, I am 18 years and above, I am a Ghanaian, I am of sound mind, and so on and so forth, and therefore you cannot take my name out of the register. But as it stands now, they are not empowered. Another concern that we also have is the possible continuous registration, albeit some checks, so that we don't have to wait for a particular period to be declared that this is the registration time, we feel that it puts caused too much burden on persons who would have turned either 18 or persons who otherwise should have been on the register but were not on the register through no fault of theirs. Either they were not within the jurisdiction to be able to register at the time it happened, or they were not 18 actually at the time it did happen. Maybe you need even the ID for other purposes. So we should allow for continuous registration. We feel like the signing off letter that former MPP chairman Jake Obi-Chebilam, that cleaning of the register is part of the process. Cleaning does not mean that throw away the register that exists and go for entirely a new register. That is not the case. And if clearly you understood what he wrote there, he was not seeking to suggest that we should go for a new register. He may give us much more details as to what he means by what cleaning, but I don't see cleaning to mean that go for completely a new register. Cleaning includes deleting names that you feel so strongly that they are not supposed to be in there because they are either minors,
and the way to
or
do that is for the EC to go to court and get the power to delete those names,
to be able
and
to
then continue to register people on a continuous basis. Now, I'd like to find out from you. Nanado has said that this is what he had to say at the point. He cited Kenya, Nigeria, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, and other countries in Africa, and said that all of them have electoral registers well below 50%. So, how exactly does the NPP want the register to be pruned or to be worked at to move from the current 56% that we have?
Thank you, Samson. Before I answer your question, I'd like us to understand what electoral reforms means. From the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, International IDEA, and its worldwide #1 UN body responsible for election and electoral management, they define it as improving responsiveness of electoral processes to public desires and expectations. Improving responsiveness of electoral processes to public desires and expectations. The public in this sense is the Ghanaians. I am happy that Her Ladyship, the Chief Justice, allowed the Ghanaians to see what went on at the Supreme Court during the petition. So Ghanaians, for the first time, were able to get involved in what really is electoral or election-related issues. So now, if you talk about pink sheet, people know about it. If you talk about register, people know about it. And I think we should thank the Supreme Court for giving us that opportunity. So what do we have to improve in the entire processes as the public or the Ghanaian desires? If you take a country's population, a constituency or a region, the population from the number of people there, and the law is that only 18 years and above are required to be on the register. They must be citizens, they must have born in Ghana, use a national identity, or 4 or 5 people should be guaranteed by 2 people, etc., etc. Now, even as we speak, the Supreme Court, in a few months ago, annulled the use of national health insurance for voter registration.
Abu Ramadan and Co.
So what happened to those who used the national health insurance in 2012 register? What are we going to do to the people who registered in 2012 using the national health insurance? Let us go and bring the Form A, which is the primary document used in voter registration, and determine the numbers and see whether the register as it exists now is faulty or not. That's the first point.
Do we not apply the Akan proverb that says that we should protect what is now there rather than go back to
so let us do a quality audit, what we call quality audit, like the NDC is asking for. that one too, you need certain parameters to be able to do the quality audit. For example, you have here this book, which is the law or the regulations on voter registration, CI 72. It says that to be able to register, you must live in the area. Secondly, it also says that when people are registered on daily basis, the report that comes out, political parties must be given copies. Then eventually, the provisional register should be given to political parties.
Is this in force? I thought 75 is now in force. Is that not the case?
No, 75 is on the voting itself. This is on voter registration.
This is for registration.
Okay.
As for the election itself.
All right, that's good. Thank you.
So it goes to say that the document that you will give daily to the political parties and which provisionally should be given should contain picture, name, sex, age, and residential address. But the Electoral Commission has always given these documents to political parties without the residential address. Why? I have been to Kenya where a quality audit has been undertaken in their voter registration, and they use the residential address to know in any particular house, Mr. So we call it voter to list. You know, the voter to the list or to the register audit. Then you are able to determine that this man said he lives in this house. This man used National Health Insurance card. This man used a guarantee or etc. And the CI 72 says that, but the EC has never given us these particulars with the residential address. Why?
You want this to change going forward?
Of course, it has to change.
Okay.
It has to change immediately because we need that to be able to do a quality audit. And the quality audit will expose that somebody either did not use the right particulars under the law to register, somebody does not live there, so it will enable us to know what the register is made up of. What kind of register do we have? Secondly, if you've done a population census, if you have a population census report that says that constituency A has 100,000 people, then if you look at 18 years and above who are supposed to register, it's, let's say, 50%. If you go and look at the registers, some of them are way, 90-something%. How did that arrive? And I have read a paper on behalf of Professor Quay at the IEA function at the Golden Tulip, where I mentioned specific names of constituencies, the number of people that the statistical service have reported in the population census vis-a-vis what the register is containing. It's absurd. And that's why we have that high number of 56-point-something% for Ghana. It's ridiculous.
So you say, like Nanado mentioned, that the standard is 50%, and in Ghana we have 56%.
Yeah, and above.
That is absurd.
Yeah.
And so we need to look at the register a second time.
Yes.
So what you are looking for is a complete total overhaul of the register.
Very well.
Because you are pointing to the use of NHIS card, which has been struck down by the Supreme Court.
Very well.
So those who use NHIA cards ought to be removed going forward.
Yep.
I see. Very interesting. James, as far as the register is concerned, what are you putting forward? What needs to change?
Well, I want to share in the view that have been expressed by my colleague panelists, that, I mean, the issue of reform has been with us all this while. And truly, contrary to what you sought to give as a prelude to our discussion, the reform we are discussing today is not only a product of we ever having the first presidential election petition. Note that of all the elections that we have had in our country, and particularly under this Fourth Republic, the 2012 election was unique. Unique in the sense that this it was the first time we introduced technology into our way of doing things by the biometric process. And so once we went into a novelty, it is only useful and proper that as human beings, we will examine ourselves and make the necessary corrective measures going forward. Okay. Otherwise, I mean, there's no point. And so when the time came, don't forget, most of the things that were even suggested by the panel of judges who presided over this presidential petition, I have read through them. They were all administrative recommendations, administrative. There was none that bordered on, if you like, the legal regime. But some suggestions have come across the political divide that hinge on the legal reforms.
But the Supreme Court, the suggestions that they made, the suggestion in respect of sanctioning or penalizing presiding officers who did not sign to their pink sheets, that will require legislative reform.
No, that already exists. That already exists.
Right.
That already exists.
We'll get there. Right.
That already exists. Yeah. So we have made some of those suggestions, and I think that the constitutional reforms that were suggested or have been suggested, you have some that are entrenched, that border on the entrenched clauses, some that are non-entrenched. And I want to argue that I do not get too clear the import of what Mr. McManu's argument about the Supreme Court judgment on the National Health Insurance cards used and the present state of the register, and thereby proceeding to say, on the basis of that, we have a bloated register. I have heard that, and I have questioned on other platforms that those who claim that we have a bloated register should give us the basis upon which their claim is valid. You can deal with statistics and the issue of international standards, that yes, you do not have more than 50% of your population being on the roll of people who qualify for universal adult suffrage. I mean, it may be so, but there are exceptions. Recently, myself and Mr. McManu and other persons from other political parties were part of an adjudication process established or set up by the Electoral Commission to remove multiple registrants from the register. That number alone was coming to about 700,000.
Oh, 72.
72,000. It's quite a huge number that if you take it out of the register, you would have the number significantly reduced. That's number one. Number two, there have been issues with...
Educate me, how did you come about detecting and saying specific that this is, a multiple registration, so it has to be removed? Except for the fact that he's registered here and registered
there. Yeah, we didn't do that. Once we did the biometric registration, the bio data of everybody was taken. And our bio data are unique. No two persons have the same bio data.
That's right.
So if you had names that popped up being the same, and when it was run through, within their programming system, the technical people ran each name against all the names that we have on the register. And you had the name picking up with another name elsewhere. Sometimes you have some of the people slightly changing or altering the name, or even changing the other information that was provided, i.e. name of parents, residential address, and so on and so forth. And they matched it against the biodata collected. Your biodata registered in Kintampo, say Central SD polling station A, where I registered, against maybe Bolgatanga LA primary, where you registered. Once the data, the biodata, picked the same biodata, meant that it was one person who had registered
twice. Or more than twice.
And so they generated such instances and were brought. Now, the adjudication was to establish, if you like, ill faith or criminal intent, because it is supposed to be punished. It's punishable. It's a punishable offense to register more than once. So we were to look at the various scenarios and recommend to the commission the removal of such names from the register. And there's a penalty additionally, that apart from paying a fine of I've forgotten the number of penalty units that you have to pay.
But briefly, does the NDC support that process? Because in your proposal, you say the EC is empowered to use the process of the court to delete names. As he said, you have gone through an administrative process of deleting of names without recourse to the court.
We have various deletions.
Okay.
We have what we call deduplication. That's what he's talking about. Where clearly, when you run through the system, you can clearly see that maybe Samson Ladi Ayenini registered at polling station A and went to another polling station with the same bio, maybe fingerprints and the rest, and registered at Samson Ladi something else.
Okay.
And possibly maybe change the age and change the parentage. When we do deduplication, the information will come out that these two IDs belong to one person. And so it's possible, there are two ways either to do it. Like you said, there's a criminal part to it, that you can be prosecuted, or you strike one out.
Okay.
They are
okay, so finish the point now.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that process has been done, and it reduced the number significantly. We need to understand.
72,000 reduced by 72,000.
Yes.
That's a lot. Really.
Yes, that's a lot. We need to understand that before the determination by the Supreme Court on the validity of the National Health Insurance Card as a national identity, we had a law,
CI 72,
CI 72,
which recognized
that allowed it. Yeah. We cannot, in retrospect, make effect the judgment of the Supreme Court today to mean that that register, which was lawfully compiled, is in default of a judgment today. Otherwise, I would have expected, and you would teach us better, that those who went to court should have, among the relief that they were seeking, a pronouncement by the Supreme Court that the register which had such that card, that NHIS card, used to compile, was unconstitutional, illegal, and for that matter, null and void. That wasn't sought. Maybe if they had sought that as a relief, I doubt if the Supreme Court judges would have granted it. Because the fact that you have got a particular identity card used at a time when it was lawful, because we have not tested this particular...
yes, you may be speaking to a basic principle of law, that their rights had been accrued, and those rights cannot be tempered any longer, because at the time they registered lawful,
sure,
and so they cannot be tampered with now. But practically, you put the law aside for a while. Is that not a challenge?
It is part of the challenge we are confronted with
because you are
today.
Looking at the point that the use of the NHIA card must have brought in a lot of people who did not qualify to register, foreigners who did not qualify to register,
Agreed.
who must have registered.
Agreed. And that is why I agree with the point he's making, that in pruning the register going forward, it must be a concerted effort. And we must not, lay blame of this situation we have here at the doorstep of any particular person. Because the CI 72 really was discussed by all political parties at the ACPAC level before it came
the
into
point
being.
Ultimately is that
we must make
it's
the
okay,
effort.
we know that these problems have happened,
yeah,
but let's live with it. Let's make sure we protect
register. Let's protect a future compilation of the register, and let's make the effort to remove those on the register with those identities. And if you indulge me, I would suggest that anybody who can recall that perhaps they went through the registration process with the health insurance card, who indeed truly know they are Ghanaians and have other identities, should volunteer to go to the commission and get their own records changed by offering the acceptable identity cards, i.e., national passports.
Let me hear
Bernard.
Let me hear Bernard on the register. What reform should take place on the register?
First, let me state ab initio that a new register has never been a panacea to the problems of double or multiple registration, or for that matter, over-bloated register. Because
it doesn't matter how much the register is perceived to have been bloated.
Bloated. A new register has never been an answer, because we've done this election after election. We have changed the register a couple of times, and anytime we change the register, we still come and complain about bloated register. And in particular in the year 2008, this was not political parties' pronouncement. It was the chairman of the Electoral Commission who pronounced that the voters register, by their estimation at the Electoral Commission, was bloated by over 1 million votes. This was the chairman, because they had factored the population growth rate, they have factored the growth in the voter, and then they have factored every other thing, and putting that we should not get the figure that we got for the election 2008. And he came out crying foul, saying that, look, we should help them by ensuring that we do not put in people to go and do more.
He blamed the parties. He said you were responsible for it.
He insisted. This was the chairman of the Electoral Commission that made that pronouncement. It was not like any political party making that pronouncement. So a new register in 2012 was done, or prior to 2012 was done. We are here today talking about a bloated register. So it tells you that it is not the issue of going to take or to start a new process of registering that solves the problem of people engaging in various forms of registration. But it's our own attitudes. How does the NDC go out? How does the MPP, PNC, CPP go out there to inform our members on which processes they should engage in registering? Some people go there, and before you realize he has registered in Sankana, he gets to Accra, the registration is ongoing, and he registers. The other problem is the way we even do the registration. Instead of doing them at every polling station, we decide that we'll do this particular portion for a period, for 10 days, then we'll carry equipment to the other place. So we do it in... when you say tot, who gallop a bit in the morning.
It's not a crime to talk. So
you know, so if you decide that you should do, say, Upper East and come and do Ashanti region, go and do, and somebody is able to move through all these places, some people will take it as a fun, just to test the system and see whether they can actually do multiple registration. And they are going around, they can do that because we have not allowed ourselves to do the registration according to polling stations. By whatever it is, we have complained that the Electoral Commission should not come and say they don't have the resources, because they should ask government. And if you ask government, all of us can impress upon the ruling party to release the resources so that at the end of the day, they will be able to do the registration per polling station and not by the so-called registration centers that they normally do. The other thing, if you did the last biometric registration, you go there, for instance, and they take your picture, and the picture is not nice. They want to delete it, it's not able to delete. Once your picture is captured, and some information is wrong, and they recapture you, it will be in the system. So that is one of them.
That's why he's saying that
automatically that's it becomes a double register. It is not a deliberate thing by the person who wanted to register, but because possibly some error was noted, then it means that it stays in the system. So you can have somebody who would be surprised that he did double registration simply because his picture was captured twice and the picture was not deleted.
That's why he says it's not everybody who will be prosecuted for double registration.
So in that vein, I do not think that going for a new register is the answer. Kobna Bonfe will attest to this. My party representative was there when they were trying to do the, what do we call it? The deduplication. They gave them 10 days to do the exercise. By the close of the 10th day, they had not even done 6,000. And they were talking about 72,000. And they were there, they all got fatigued. It tells you the process, and they themselves like, this cumbersome process, At one point, they all agreed that staff of the Electoral Commission will work over the weekends so that they will come on over the weekday to come and validate what they had done. Simply because it was too tedious and they wanted to at least even get 10% of the 72,000 so that they can say that they have done some work within the 10 days. So it tells you the amount of work or volume of work that is contained in this. So a new register necessarily is not the answer. Let me also support my colleagues to say, if we have a bad law, and that bad law is allowed to operate, the effects of that law will stay with us if it is eventually determined that it was not, after all, a good law. That is simple. And so if CI 72 permitted, and if you take the electoral reforms, the electoral laws, you see that CI 72 has been quoted verbatim in the new book.
But let's be fair to the commission.
Can I make my point? Can I make my point? Can I make my point? Has been quoted verbatim. Everything has been produced and put there because the Electoral Commission thought that it is prudent to gather all laws on elections. So if it is chieftaincy, laws on laws on chieftaincy elections, they are put in this book. If they are on district assembly elections or local level elections, you find them there. If they are on council of state, all laws pertaining to every elections are put in this book. And CI 72 is laws pertaining to registration of our elections. It has also been quoted verbatim, and I made a point there, but the essence is that when you put these laws together and a portion is contested in the court, at the time the portion was contested, you take into account that the law was in full. At that time, the law that was in existence is CI 72, which says that you needed a national identification card, which we call the Ghana card. You needed a national health insurance card. You needed an old birth certificate. Birth certificate is deliberately deleted from or omitted from this particular portion. Passport, driving license. These are, for me, urban documents that are required for this particular exercise. We complain that birth certificate is actually the primary source document for all these other things, documents that we are talking about. And yet, it was done. At the end of the day, people complain that with the national health insurance card, the issue of nationality is not determined there, and therefore went to court to protest that it should not be used in the last limited registration.
And the court agreed with them.
And the court agreed with them.
Okay.
So you can take it from this process and say, those who use it did not do anything illegal.
That's right.
They did not do anything illegal because it was the law at the time. Today, if the law has changed, you cannot go and say those who have done something with the old law should. So I think that we should look at that. The other
just briefly, Governor, what is it that he was saying that you said you needed to
I
be
didn't
fair
even
to
go
the
there. He
Electoral
wanted
Commission?
to jump the gun. And
He was making a point you felt was unfair to the EC.
I didn't make the point.
Even though one of our senior colleagues have pointed it out, Bernard was the one who raised it during the inauguration.
I didn't say anything.
Of this. If you look at page 127 of this document,
I didn't say anything.
Where,
you are trying to bring it out.
Where they compiled verbatim what is contained in CI 72, and in here is
page 172.
Page 127.
127.
Yeah, 127. And where you have the lists of documents that you can use, the national identification card, a national health insurance card
was repeated.
It was repeated because it had gone to press long before the judgment.
Okay.
So I thought it was going to do mischief.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to that angle. Let me add.
This document really is actually the second of its kind. The Judicial Service, the Chief Justice has a program where we have had, I think we have had about the third one. It's the latest one, very voluminous,
that's right,
containing all the electoral laws.
But let's also say that the Electoral Commissioner himself says, as far as they are concerned, these are all the laws on elections they can gather.
Right.
But that if any other person finds any law anywhere,
you can
suggest to them.
You can suggest so that in subsequent.
Okay.
Let me conclude.
Sad to note, however, that the EC could only do this through the help of the European Union.
That's not what.
But we would come to that. Logistics.
Let me conclude on this matter of the 2010 population census. if you look at the 2010 population census, I have said that since 2000 or earlier, I don't remember myself being counted. I don't remember that I've been counted.
Me too.
And so I'm not sure that a 2010.
But meanwhile, you registered to vote, even though you were not counted.
I was not counted. You understand? And therefore, if you take just the statistical compilation, and why? We know how these things are done. Many people that they sent to go and capture the census, the data, did not actually even go to the field. They sat in their homes, and then they completed the forms and submitted them and went and collected whatever allowance.
But he made the earlier point.
I'm making the point that if you take even that point, it tells you that people between the ages of 18 and above, 18 and up, no, it's 20 to 50, 60 years. 20 to 60 years, it's about 50% of our population. That is what the 2010 population census is saying. So if you take 20 to 60, it's about 60 plus. It's about 50% of our population. And our voting age is 18. You have to factor what percentage of that can be added so that you will be able to get what the total vote will be. If we don't do this, and we just jump and say our demographic configuration will certainly maybe be different from what is pertaining in other countries. If you go to Germany, they have, for instance, an aging population, a quick point on this, as opposed to our youthful population.
Let's move on. Just a quick point on this, which he mentioned earlier. In their 12-page memorandum that they sent to the EC, they say
talking about
that
the volume of their pages.
I took pains to go through and check what work each of the parties has done.
I can tell you that right now they want to even change this submission that they have.
We have changed it.
The IDEC.
Have you heard that one? They have changed this one.
They did a lot of work.
Yes.
Compared to what the parties did.
I don't want to interject.
Apart from the
so
NPP.
you have your way, I'll have mine.
Now see, he made this point that
they've changed most
the
of the
NPP
things.
recommends an amendment of the public elections registration, the CI Regulation 2012, CI 72, to ensure that political parties receive copies of the final register of voters based on which the EC will proceed to organize general elections at least 21 days before the conduct of the elections.
I agree.
All of you agree?
I agree.
That
is the law.
That is how it's supposed to be.
It's not the law. It's not in the law.
I agree.
That is how
that are not correct. It's
Samson.
provisional. That is in the CI 72.
That is what
it's not the
it's
final
supposed to be.
register.
No
But
problem.
there is
But I
always
agree.
a challenge.
Yeah, we know what
of
happened the
getting-
last time.
And that is why even in the Supreme Court ruling, they agree that, look, provisional be given so that when the final is ready,
That one
they can,
too.
that
But I
will
agree. I
also
agree
be
with
made.
this. I agree with this
because
position of the
mostly
NPP. Absolutely.
the final is no different so much from the provisional.
Okay.
They just
No, something. I think I have to speak. He has had his time.
I have not.
No,
I spoke
no, you
before
have.
You
You
have.
have. Don't worry.
You have
Don't worry.
on the
I only-
register.
I
You
only
have,
spoke.
and you have made interventions
on.
also. Don't worry.
I haven't done any intervention. I've sat here.
I've
so
allowed
much.
you.
I was the first.
When Bonfe was making a point, you wanted to make an intervention. I allowed you to come in and make
I
the
only
intervention
aided
for
on the
a few minutes.
deduplication. There are issues he's
I haven't
raised.
spoken
Okay.
on
There are
deduplication.
issues
Even
he's raised
deduplication.
that I have to speak.
Okay.
Just give me
So don't
2
worry.
minutes.
Don't worry. Just
give me 2-3 minutes before he comes in.
okay. Go ahead.
You see, when you bring census data of a constituency, say, oh, because for this constituency, we had 10,000 people being reported as the population 18 and above for this particular area. And that during the registration for election purposes, you have a voter register of those who were 18 and above being maybe 11,000. That amounted to bloating the register. You are completely wrong, because one could be counted in Accra, where he is also resident, and choose to register in his hometown. Like take for example, Kobina Bonfe. He lives in Accra here. I live in Accra here, but he comes from Kintampo. He can choose that during the population, housing, and census period, he is counted in Accra, where he lives. So he's not captured.
How
in
do you
Kintampo.
take that explanation?
But when
that
it
he's
comes to
giving,
registration,
that you
for
take
voting,
you take a constituency where by the population census you have 10,000 people, but by the registration on the voters register there's 11,000, and that's a problem.
This conversation from the basis that we live in a global environment and we have global best practices. Ghana cannot isolate itself from what is best in the world.
That's right.
Now, generally, any increase of 25% in constituency voter population from the last population is too much on the high side. Any increase in 25%. You realize that from 2008 to 2012, there are certain constituencies which had way 50%, 57% of what the previous 2008 voter registration. For our quote, Adenta, there was an increase of 48.7% over the 2008 one. Any increase above 25% globally is not acceptable.
Hold on, you agree?
Two.
For increase of over 48,
over 25%.
I
Yes.
From the
completely
previous.
disagree with him. You have to factor in movement. You see,
Yes,
you
I
see,
factored in
you
movement.
have to
That's why
factor
I
in
went as
movement.
far as 25%.
You have to also consider the
This
fact
is
that
coming from
census
population
is based on
census
a reference
experts.
point.
You see, we are
Census is based on a reference point.
He's
Because
giving you best
census
practice
line-
average.
best practices from professionals.
You see,
From
when you
population
talk about-
census
when you talk
professionals.
about best
Hey.
practices, you must also factor the population dynamics.
Yes.
Factor the population dynamics of
Samson,
Ghana.
let me finish. I haven't
Factor
finished.
No,
also,
wait, he was on the
factor
floor, really.
also the growth rate of the country.
Yes.
Maybe
Yes.
18
Yes.
years
This-
ago
this-
to
Professor,
2012. What was our population growth rate? Was it 2.6% or was it 3 point something percent? At that time, our population growth rate may be higher. So the number of 16 years, the number of 17 years who were counted in 2010, who will be turning 18 by the time of registering in 2012, will be higher than the rate of growth now.
Excellent
So you
point.
must factor all those things in.
Yes,
Your
a
analysis.
very good point. I can now imagine. I can forecast what is going to happen
How many people
at
did
the
register
at the committee
in the last
level as you
election
decide to
they want to
sift
register?
the proposals in this document and present them as what should be tabled for reforms. It does appear. I'm hearing Kofi Adams. I'm hearing Bernard Mona, whose input will be wired through.
We don't have to
James.
give any new inputs.
Well, no, don't worry, because he represents you and other parties.
on the
represent
thing
you.
here, you have put, you
and
have
he-
put, you
and
have
he-
said,
don't worry,
you
gentlemen,
have said
gentlemen,
CPP,
gentlemen,
you have
just hold on,
said
just hold on.
yes party,
And I
not
hear
my
Kovna
party.
Bonfe also suggest that an attempt of an overhaul of the register or a new register is not what is needed. So it looks like if you're not careful, you're going to be a lone voice, except you have the other civil society groups that are on the committee support you.
I don't have any problem. Let me tell you, as I said initially, that the reforms are generated in response to Ghanaians' desire for changes in the entire electoral system.
Right.
We are doing this not for MPP.
Correct.
But you know what elections and post-election violence has done all over the world, particularly
talk
Africa.
about it.
So if we don't get the rules, and particularly elections is a process that begins with voter registration. We don't get it right. We don't want to follow that path.
There were other
So
points
let
you
us
wanted to
let us-
mention.
Yes, the
when,
first point
he
is
was
that
speaking. So do that
Mona
quickly.
was not being honest to himself by saying that the 2010 population census has more than 50% of people aged between 20 and 60. That's absolutely incorrect. I say it on authority. I wish I had a copy of the population census here to show to you. It's not correct.
But he didn't say more than. He
Number
said
two.
it is. He didn't say more than.
Number two, on the issue of the deduplication, it is a system whereby voters, you know, when you register at a particular station, let's say Joy FM, your data are exported to the central database in the Electoral Commission. When all the data from all parts of the country come, they use a technology we call AFIS, Automatic Fingerprint Inspection System. It is AFIS that will match every individual voter's fingerprints against the entire, which we call one to N, one to many. So when that is done, if you have registered somewhere, elsewhere, with different names, the fingerprints, which are unique, will pick it up. In the last voter registration, as Kabila was saying, out of less than 1 million people who registered, they were able to get 72,000 multiple registration. Ask yourself, in the 2008 registration, in the 2012 registration, which registered 14 million, how many did they get? 6,000. 6,000. I say it on authority because at the meeting so it means the EFIS was not working in 2012.
No.
Okay.
Samson.
Well, hold on.
This is understandable because
Right, hold on.
there are people.
Hold on. You're still here on Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis show, and we are with the parties. They are representatives on the Election Reforms Committee at the EC, with the exception of Bernard Mona. Of course, the other parties like PPP, there are problems with the way the selection process went through. Well, the membership is this. You have 3 people from the EC.
Is also not
you have 3 people from the EC. Yeah, he's not. Yes. But I'm saying that when you look at the proposals for reforms that were sent to the EC, it is Kofi Adams who signed the one that the NDC took to the EC. Okay. Now, with the political parties, you have Johnson Esiedun Ketia, you have Peter McMenu, you have James Kovna Bonfe, you have Enina Do of the Yes Party. There's civil society, you have Kwesi Jonah of the IDEC, you have Dr. Ransford Jampo of IEA, you have Dr. Franklin Odro of the CDD, who also form part of that committee. Well, we're taking a quick break here. When we return, we would find out what other issues they agree on. They don't seem to agree on how the EC and his deputy, for example, should be appointed. They have suggestions about all of that. They do agree that no verification, no vote should stay. Meanwhile, some of the civil society organizations don't seem to agree that that is the best thing to leave on the platform. Yes, Bernard Mona also doesn't think that no verification, no vote should continue to sit in our books and for the next elections because it can create problems. There are other issues that they don't agree on. E-voting. There are some of them, almost most of them, they say e-voting, hold on. Hold on is good, but hold on. We'll return and look at these issues. So we'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis show. Just some quick, clear issues to clear. You are saying that you support an overhaul of the register, but not in the manner that the NPP is seeking.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And what I mean basically is that we have always had a way of fine-tuning the register, and I believe that we need to prune it.
Okay.
And the adjudication process to deduplicate was a part of
all of it.
Except that the basis in the first place for they are calling for an entirely new register is itself not grounded on any solid
So point made. And you also say that it's not exactly correct that you don't support an overhaul, but it is how it should be done.
How it should be done. And two, Mr. McMahon made a point that because 72,000 names have been submitted for removal as a result of the deduplication process, and only 6,000 happened in 2012, it meant that the deduplication wasn't working. In 2012, the register was entirely fresh, new. The recent one, there were people who have lost their ID cards who thought that because I have lost my ID card, I can go and register. This is an opportunity to get a new card. Right. There were others who have relocated and thought that by relocating, this is an opportunity for them to also register where they found themselves. That is why we had more numbers than we did in 2012.
Thanks
so
for that
it is not that
explanation.
it didn't work.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. Now, let me bring you some of the views that you are sharing on my Facebook wall. And forgive me, the technical team here is informing me that the text platform, they are having some difficulties and are unable to access your emails or text messages that you sent through there. I'll read the first one from Abdul Malik Kubako Jr. You're welcome to town. Welcome back. He'll be on the show very shortly. He says that in respect to what something Mona said, he said apparently Mona's focus is on the presidential elections because the PCP took part in the parliamentary elections in 1996. Elections are run on both president and parliamentary levels. The PCP was in alliance, hence its absence in the presidential ticket. Akar of the PCP was running mate to NPP's John Ejekum Kufuor precision. That's all he
In
wants
fact,
to bring to attention.
that was the first time Freddie Blee went to Parliament on the ticket of PCP.
Okay, all right.
No comment on that. I agree with Quick Bako.
Okay, Alhaji Ali Ishaq Abdallah says something. You see why we are here? Why can't we use the NIA by using both EC, the police, banks, and NHIA to get an accurate data and ID so that the cyclical registration will stop? Bashid Abubakar says, I suggest it's high time. Okay, you want Atik to also be on the show. Thank you very much. Bonti Benjamin in Achimabwakwa says, the voters register must be audited, especially now that the court has ruled that NHIS card cannot be used to register. Let's lay the best foundation for a credible election in the future. Abdul Aziz says that Mitt Romney, the Republican beaten by President Obama in the U.S. 2012 election, has decided he will not run for president again. Mr. Romney said he had decided it was best to give other leaders in the party the opportunity. Okay, I don't get your point really. Sorry, I didn't have the opportunity to vet before I bring the messages. So send me a message about something we are doing now. That should be your contribution. Who is this again? Al Hassan Idrisu says the PPP should have been giving, should have even been the ones complaining and not the PNC. The PNC is not doing any serious thinking right now and are now not doing any serious analysis. Of course, Bernard will tell you that is an unfair statement that you had to make.
That's his opinion. I can't grudge him.
He's saying that the PPP is showing a lot more, strength now.
It's possible he is a member of the party, so you talk positives about it. But I grant his opinion because we're doing our bit. We've been contributing ideas in the development of this nation in terms of policy. No political party has contributed more policies than the PNC. The facts are there. And so if you take it from Ghana Education Trust Fund to school feeding program to national health insurance, the PNC has contributed significant ideas that have helped this nation. They should tell me what ideas that others have contributed that they can quickly point out to say that they have done A, B, C, D. But that's his opinion, and you can't grudge it.
Okay, I'll take a very final one here from Don Pino. He says in Malam, he says that we need serious electoral reforms and all the parties must join in the fight. Why do you all agree that no verification, no votes should stay?
Well, Samson, elections, and for that matter, any part of human life and human endeavor is not static. As you move on, there are bound to be changes and you must adapt. You see, when the entire multi-party democracy reignited in 1992, NPP boycotted. Under the leadership of Chairman B.J. Darocha, he wrote a whole book on stolen verdict, plus electoral reforms. Some of the proposals he made at that time are even still valid. No verification, no vote has come about because of bloated register and the need to identify individual fingerprints to be able to overcome the challenge of double and multiple registration. Next 2 weeks, Valentine Day, Nigeria is going into elections. They are using, for the first time, what they call card reader. It's the same as the verification. Kenya is using it. Zambia is going to use it. So, like I'm saying, global best practices.
That is their sort of e-voting process, is it?
No, it's not e-voting.
Okay.
It's only to identify people so that they are able to curtail people who vote multiple and double.
Okay.
So they are starting it for the first time in Nigeria next 2 weeks.
Okay.
And you have started it in 2012. You've seen some setbacks. So you say you want to abandon it or rather improve upon it when other countries are getting on board that technology to be able to solve the problem of double and multiple voters. You can't run away from that. So I subscribe ideally that must be maintained because it's something good that globally people are accepting. If you go to South America, it's all over. Venezuela, Peru, Bolivia, Brazil, they are all using it. If you come to Africa now, Kenya used it for the first time in 2013. We used it in 2012 for the first time. Nigeria is going to use it next 2 weeks. South Africa uses it. Other nearby countries for question of finances will come on board. So why is it that we have such a practice, a global best practice that curtail people from doing multiple and double registration, and we want to roll it back instead of moving forward? No. So we are for it. We are for it because history has told us that people really voted twice. People really voted multiple. And there was no other way apart from the biometric technology, which limits each individual to himself through the fingerprint to be able to solve that problem. So we
there are challenges, and I ask you, James, this question. There are challenges that people foresee would come with the usage of the no verification, no vote. Constitutional challenge that a person is empowered by the Constitution, given the right by the Constitution to vote. If you use a machine to deny that person the right to vote, simply because there was a problem, his finger could not be properly identified by your machine, then you are heading for a situation where the election could be challenged again. So there is this, is it the African Democratic Institute or something, that says no verification, no vote should not be contemplated. But the parties seem to agree that you need it, it should continue.
Well, Samson, I think that we all need to appreciate the spirit behind the concept of no verification, no vote, and the principle behind it. It is enshrined in our Constitution.
Right.
The principle of one man, one vote. And that the moment you allow one man's vote to be altered by way of outcrowding it with other votes which are not legitimately representative of the principle of one man, one vote, the whole essence of the voting, exercise is shredded.
The failure of your biometric machine should also not deny the person that right.
Nobody is talking about the biometric machine allowing or disallowing somebody. Take note, during the registration process, notice is given that there are people who may be defective or suffering from some natural ailment or situation that would not allow a capture of their biometric features. So we have got them classified as FOs.
Face only.
Face only. Their biometric features will not be taken. And such people, they are identified ordinarily other than through the biometric machine.
That system you talk about and that window of opportunity existed in 2012, and yet the problem arose. The president at certain points in his hometown had to complain, but it was getting terrible.
I will tell you something. It was resultant of number one, poor training and ignorance. Okay? And if you like, attempt to overcommand machines that are technical or equipment that are technical. We've spoken to the vendors, met with the political party reps at the technical and security level, and post-elections we have been given a debriefing, and some of them are captured in this reform document that is before us. And the truth is that you have all 10 fingerprints captured in a system. The machines are built in such a way that when you have asked the person to put the forefinger, the right forefinger on it, and the machine is unable to detect it, when you are asking the person to place another to re-engage in that exercise, you don't ask him or her to repeat the same finger. They have to use another finger.
So poor training accounted for this.
Absolutely, it is part of it. Two is that we overcommanded the machines. Because, and we know, on the field, some of the personnel who were contracted temporarily by the Electoral Commission received their training for only an hour or so within 24 hours to the D-Day.
We are racing against time, so let's do it this way. Now, Bernard has a contrary view. Let's hear him on the issue of no verification, no vote. Let me just let you address that by reading just a little portion of what the political parties, Ghana Political Parties platform organized by the IEA agreed or happened in Akosombo. It says that the issue of no verification, no vote generated heated debate at Akosombo and could not be resolved as the representatives of the NDC emphasized the need for a window of opportunity for voters. They argued that where the identity of a voter was not in doubt, it would be unjust and unlawful to deny such a person the right to vote because of the failure of the biometric verification device to authenticate the fingerprints. Now, we are told that at Koforidia, the matter was, however, resolved at Koforidia when Mr. Johnson Esiedu Nketia, General Secretary of the NDC, said the party's position is that of enforcing the rule of no verification, no vote, and did not understand why the NDC representatives opposed the rule at Akosombo. Why do you oppose no verification, no vote?
First, let me say that I'm a lover of technology, and it is important that we invite technology into our way of doing things. But if technology itself has defaults, it is important that we take measures to ensure that technology is not 100% proof. Take CI 72, which is on registration of voters. CI 72 says that you need certain identities to qualify you to register. And they listed out those identities, including the national health insurance, the driving license, the passport, the old ID cards, and what have you. At the end of it, the F portion of it, it says, if you do not have any of these documents, urban documents, to enable you register, 2 people who are registered voters around that area could come and testify of your identity so that you can be enabled to register. This is even at the point of registration where your identity is doubted. Now you are registered. You've been issued an ID card. Your name is on the register. Every feature of your ID card conforms with what is on the register. You get there on the polling day, you have stayed in the queue possibly for 2 hours or more, then you get there, then you put your hand on the machine fails to identify you. As in most cases, they bring kerosene and you wash your hand, they bring, what do we call it, Coca-Cola and everything. You do that and you still cannot be detected by the machine. You are asked to walk away despite that you have a valid ID card which features and everything conforms with what is on the register. And you are denied. No 2 persons, as is contained in CI 72, are allowed in CI 75 to say, in the absence of all this, you have done everything and you have proof. Your proof is also contained in the register, the polls book, so that 2 people who come from that area could come and simply testify that, look, this person whose identity is on the register and the ID card that he has and every feature conforms, they should use that as the basis to allow you to vote. It is not that your name is not on the register. And if you take Article 42 of the 1992 Constitution, it says that you are eligible to vote when you are of 18 years and you have been registered by the Electoral Commission. Now you have been registered, and by some design, a faulty machine, or by some default, as we all have said, maybe the poor training of the personnel that are supposed to man this, is the reason for which you cannot go and cast a vote despite that you are registered.
There's reference to the face only.
I'm saying that the face only, as is contained in CI 72, CI 75, is only for people who could not be registered biometrically.
Because of that disability.
Because of a disability. Not those who are already captured on the register. But on polling day, for instance, if you are suffering from Parkinson after you have registered, you know what effects it will have on your thumb, on your fingerprints.
Okay.
So at that instant, you are denied because you are not going to register. And I find it ridiculous that we are not saying that don't use biometric registration. At a point where the biometric verifier is unable to pick your identity, then you opt for the second best and say that if A, B, C, D cannot, are there any other persons here who can come and identify and attest to the fact that you are registered?
Point eloquently made. Now, Kofi Adams, the NDC speaks of a caveat. So you don't agree with groups like the Election Institute for Sustainable Democracy in Africa, which describes the no verification, no vote as unnecessary, and which wants it to be rectified?
They want it rectified, not completely thrown out, I believe.
Okay.
So that's exactly what we've all been calling for, that rectification so that it works. Training, proper training so that it works.
So what is your caveat?
We have
because the face only does not apply properly, like he says.
It doesn't.
That is why we're saying that. For example, one thing has come clear, that the failure of the verification devices in the 2012 election was one, because some officials decided to run the battery to its dead end before
Without
changing.
knowing.
When the case was that after using it for a certain number of hours, whether it was still maybe 20% full, you needed to change. They decided to run it full to dead end before changing. When they changed, it did not work. Others also allow people to continually repeat the same finger when they should have tried other fingers when the first one failed. Now we are being told by the vendor that this is the way to go. Electoral Commission itself is doing some trials as we speak now. They've done a national trial of the biometric devices that they have acquired. They are going to go to the regions and do both urban, peri-urban, and some rural areas. So all these issues about change of fingers, hardening of fingers, and the rest is being factored in the new machines that are being acquired. And if they try it, and it comes out that the problem still exists, of course, we are political parties. We still have time between now and the election to look at what we can do. But until then, we believe as a party that the no verification, no vote principle must remain.
Are all the parties added them on one mind about having the presidential elections in November?
Of course, the first presidential elections was in November. It was only as a result of the
My
MPP.
question is, are you all agreed?
I agree.
The MPP boycott.
Are you agreed?
We don't have a problem with it at all.
Okay, you also agreed
Yeah, we
because
agree.
there's
We
sense in
agree.
it
We
that
agree.
if there are problems, they will be solved
but
before the
there's
inauguration.
There's a correction I want to make on Bernard. Bernard has been speaking on truthfulness. Though Article 42 of the Constitution says that every citizen of Ghana has the right to vote. If you go to 51, it says then the Electoral Commission shall make constitutional instruments for effective performance.
So where is the untruth? So where is the untruth?
The Constitution says
where
you
is
can
the
vote.
untruth?
It does not mean
No,
that
so
if you
where is
don't
the
go
untruth?
through
You
the
disagree
laws,
with his
No, so where's
interpretation.
the
I
untruth?
disagree.
So where's the
Well,
untruth?
if
So
you
that's
don't
the
go
point.
through,
No, so
if
where's
you don't
the
go
untruth?
through the laws,
Okay.
then
So
you are
where's the
handed
untruth?
over.
Let's not
So
believe
where's the
it.
untruth?
The truth is that
he has changed
you
it.
must go through the laws, even if
No,
the Constitution
I think
says
what you ought to be saying
No,
is that
you
you
cannot
disagree
say that
with his
with-
interpretation.
I disagree.
Yeah,
I
you cannot say it's
disagree.
an untruth.
So the Electoral Commission, in the performance of its duties, had made regulations in the form of CI, which is also embodied in the Constitution.
But in making
So-
a CI, the CI is
Well,
not supposed to ensure that
you know
people
what?
are defranchised.
But the laws, yesterday, for example, let me give you a small, yesterday in Nigeria, the law says that
I don't think
When
Nigeria
the-
is the best example. for
you
us.
sit here,
When we are
you
looking
sit
at
here,
elections.
next 2 weeks you will see whether the elections is the best
Ghana-
or not.
Ghana has
You
always
sit
been
here,
a
Ghana
shining
always
example.
praise yourself.
Okay.
No, it is not we who are
So
praising
you are
ourselves.
all
It's not we who are
But I
praising
don't
ourselves.
think that
We
They should have elections in November.
ran the best of
let
elections.
me say that I quite disagree with Bernard's interpretation of the fact that no verification, no vote is an infringement on the right of the people to vote. I disagree with him.
No
It
problem.
could be.
No.
That's what I'm saying. That is his view. I hold a contrary view to that.
agree with
What
you.
I rather believe no verification, no vote does is that it rather strengthens the principle of one man.
Which you have already made. Which is a point you have already made.
But
the suggestion tied to
yes.
Sorry, we need to move on quickly.
Yeah.
The suggestion tied to having the presidential elections in November.
You're not granting me my 1 minute.
Include that, for example, if there's a petition to be done. Mr. Gabriel Poman suggested when he led the process in Kosovo, is it that there should be 21 days? The election petition should be done within 21 days.
Well,
is that something that all of you agree?
Let's first agree.
The NPP does not. It speaks about reasonable time, which is the present
let's first appreciate that the holding of our elections, both presidential and parliamentary, has a history, and the history being that when it was done in 1992. And there was a boycott in the parliamentary. We learned from there to put the two together. And appears from our own constitution, the period allowed for
parliamentary elections
is 30 days before the dissolution of parliament, and for the presidential, not more than 4 months and not later than 1 month. So the only date congruent was the 1 month period, which is the 7th of December. We can amend that of parliament. And fortunately for us, it is not an entrenched clause in the constitution. So we can...
The Yes Party, for example, made this suggestion in its memorandum. It submitted a 2-page memorandum.
Two-tier parliamentary election.
Okay. Now, and this memorandum, it made 3 suggestions in all of it. It said there should be a midterm election. So that you have midterm elections, you conduct the polls for 92 seats of parliament.
Out of the 275.
Yes. Together with the presidential.
Yes.
And then...
2 years into the
together with the presidential. And then, after about 2 years, you conduct elections for the remaining 180.
I don't get...
We don't even understand.
I don't get the logic. I don't get the logic behind that. Really, we are not there yet. But I would prefer that we have different periods for our presidential and our parliamentary elections. We are not there yet.
Okay.
But you see, if we amend the parliamentary period for parliamentary elections so that we move it to, say, 2 months, we can come to 7th of November for our presidential elections, or maybe for both presidential and parliamentary, or maybe even in October. The presidential, or if you like, resolution of petitions, if there are any, is not limited to only presidential. It's also on in parliament. And if we recall, the 1996, I think the second parliament, from 1997 to 2000, had a situation where Mr. Isaac Kamu, who was supposed to sit in that parliament, was only pronounced the legitimate member of parliament elected after the expiration of that parliament.
Okay, so can we do this again? Was also in parliament. I want us to move to another point. I want us to move to the EC itself and election security. But before that, are you all agreed that decisions at IPAC should be made binding? It should be legislated to be made binding because of the experience of especially this election petition, where the EC said, no, we didn't agree with you on these matters, blah, blah, blah. Because that's one of the suggestions by the NPP. I read one of their points. They say that the party recommends that decisions at IPAC ought to form part of the body of constitutional instruments which will govern the conduct of elections in this country, in order to ensure that all of IPAC's resolutions become binding on the EC and all parties.
But Samson, no CI has been done without consultation with IPAC.
Make it binding. The decision
it's not been binding.
No CIs have been done without consultation.
What you do at IPAC is advisory.
Means that
are you agreed?
The parties contribute to the development of the CIs.
I have heard many people say
so after
the Electoral Commission is independent, so political parties or for that matter, IPAC cannot tell them what to dictate. But for me, I don't subscribe to that idea, because the Constitution itself, on which the Electoral Commission takes its autonomy from, it gives the people of Ghana the power, the sovereignty resides in the people of Ghana.
Sure.
So what they say through their representatives should be binding.
That's why the CI is taken to Parliament.
Irrespective of whether they are.
That's why
are you not
CI is taken
concerned?
to Parliament.
Are you not concerned? And Bernard, maybe Bernard, you should take this briefly. Are you not concerned that? Sorry, gentlemen, within the limited time that we have, allow me to help and see if we can put this quickly. Are you not concerned that you meet at IPAC, you take decisions, you give it to the EC, and the EC doesn't implement them? First, and you expect them to be implemented?
First, IPAC is at the behest of the Electoral Commission.
Right.
And the Electoral Commission, through the political parties, agreed to meet to form a body of ideas that the Electoral Commission can sift from in order to still assert their autonomy or independence. And so if you call it IPAC, it's advisory. And advice is given. It's not necessarily
You think
taken.
it should remain what it is?
I think that in order that we don't, otherwise we'll sit somewhere and start running the Electoral Commission by political parties meeting and determining which way. For instance, you recall that we were to institute a procurement committee for the Electoral Commission. Political parties had to say that no, because it will confront the independence and autonomy of the Electoral Commission. I think that we should impress upon the Electoral Commission through moral suasion that, look, you don't bring people to come and sit down and then they advise, and then you just reject their advice absolutely. And I have had occasions to complain. For instance, we met and agreed that we should have about 10,000 registration centers. The Electoral Commission agreed with us. Later, they moved it, and they cut it down when they were planning to 5,000, and they didn't even tell us which areas they have cut and what it is going to happen. And therefore, it brings some level of confusion. But I think that as we progress, we are all getting to the point. Initially, political parties and the Electoral Commission were not meeting. Today, we are meeting. We can express our views. I disagree with them sometimes so strongly on their issues, but I don't think that legislating is the way out.
Okay. The question of election security has been very important.
Well, Samson,
yes.
Election security, only 4 days ago, and I'll continue to mention Nigeria. Somebody in Sokoto High Court took the federal government to court that he cannot use the military in elections, and the court ruled in their favor. You see, election security, election is a civilian matter. The police, who is the apex of
the army votes,
civilian security, is capable. And I'm happy that throughout our various elections, particularly since 2000, we've come to realize that district chief executives, regional ministers, under the National Security Act, I think it's Act 426 or so, gives them the power to chair regional security committee meetings and district security committee meetings. So they use that to infringe on electoral processes. We are saying they must sit back, let the professional police do that job on election day.
Just briefly, this text message, it's very instructive. It's coming from one Nelson Emmanuel Hakim, Mo Line, Kintampo. Mo Line, Kintampo. He says, I am a registered voter whose polling station is Japan House, Kintampo. If after voting, I decide to go to Presby Primary in Kintampo, where I am also known by the people around that place, is Bernard saying I should be allowed to go through the process even though I voted earlier at Japan House? Come again. The problems with the no verification, no vote, and the caveat that is being allowed.
Can I make the point? Can I make the point?
Sorry.
If it's directed to me, I need to respond.
Oh, it's just a question.
No, but just a question. It's a question that also I should not respond. Because
on election
you pass the thing to him.
Sorry.
You deliberately pass the thing to him so he can read it.
We are on election security.
You more or less coerced him to read the thing.
McMenu's point
and you don't want my response.
Is to divest the security of political control. We know that by our history, the security has always been under the control of the political authority.
You see, no, but that is why I'm surprised about Mr. McMenu's continuous reference to Nigeria. He himself now goes back and says, since 2000, we have been doing A, B, C, D. Now you go back and talk about Nigeria, which just recently, somebody in Sokoto went to court to get the military not to do it. It means the military have been doing it all this while. When we have had police take charge of our elections. Now we are even moving further. to say that when it comes to the polling area, the presiding officer should be in charge of security, and that the security personnel who are posted to the polling area should take orders from the presiding officer as far as the polling area is concerned.
I'm sorry, but we need
the polling area, you will have the police and other
platform to go into the thorough details of the proposals. Let me just read this very last one. Ato Edu says that biometric verification machines are not foolproof and error-free. Systems are also embedded in mistakes. Systems evolve. No verification, no vote makes a lot of sense. On that note, I want to say that we draw the curtains on this show. This moment, we are privileged to have had Bernard Mona, who is General Secretary of the PNC. Kofi Adams is the National Organizer of the NDC. Peter McMahon is in charge of election reforms within the NPP, and he also is a professional in that regard, traveling across the world over these matters and observing elections. James Kobna Bonfe is with the CPP and represents smaller parties at the Electoral.
Not smaller, minority.
But the NPP is a minority. My outfit is provided by Lasida. Have a good afternoon. Come your way next week, hopefully without any boycotts. Thank you very much.